At this point, I'm probably going to create the biggest mistake I'm going to make all night. I'm going to let David Stallings have this microphone. And I'm not responsible, incidentally, for the content of anything he says or does. Mr. Stallings.
Thank you. Since it's so hot, I'm going to hold my remarks to about 1 hour and 15 minutes, if that's okay. No, I'd just simply like to say what an honor it was and a privilege to have been associated with these two gentlemen. Of course, you all know their story. They were both World War II heroes. They were a great influence on the lives of hundreds of students, not only the football players, but the other students that they came in contact with, driver's ed, and in their different classes. I'm not going to say a whole lot more. I just want to thank everybody who contributed, everybody who came out today. Again, we want to invite everyone to the reception at the Hotel Fredonia. Rick's going to tell you a little more about that. I know all of you linemen especially remember the Matthews Mile. That was up the hill out there, and being a lineman myself, Dina said that some of us would have died for the coaches. I almost did on several occasions down there in the hole in football. I lost 13 pounds the first day of practice my senior year. I wish I could do that again, but I remember all those days so fondly. And after high school, in later years, Coach Matthews taught me how to fly an airplane, and I was always scared to death, still am. I would grip the yoke so tightly that my fingers would turn white, and he said, "David, you need to hold that yoke like you hold your girlfriend, not like you're trying to grab a football player running down the field." And he was a great instructor, and I went to see him just a few weeks before he passed away, and told him that we were attempting to do some sort of tribute to him and to Coach Matthews, and I'm so glad that we have completed that, and I wish that they could both be here with us to see this today. I'm glad their families are here. Also, would like to mention some other coaches who were a big part of our lives. Coach Phil Prince, I know Nancy's here tonight, I believe, and some of the family. Coach Joe Harris. I don't think Coach Harris is able to get out much anymore, but he was a great influence on many boys. Eli Poole, Mr. Newberry. I know you all remember WC and his paddle. I do. But anyway, that's about all I have to say, other than just to say it was just a great honor to be associated with these men, and I know that all of you feel the same way. Thank you very much. Also, I'd like to introduce he's actually my cousin. I don't really let too many people know that. He, of course, was a big football hero here at Nacogdoches High, and MVP in the Cotton Bowl 1968 for Texas A&M, and then went on to play for the Atlanta Falcons. And his little boy Dennis is now the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos. So we're all proud of Grady Slim Allen. I'd like to introduce you tonight.
David, you need to go get your eyes checked if you think I'm slim. I swore I wasn't going to do this. But these two gentlemen, they touched the lives of several people. And I'd like to kind of reminisce and kind of rehash a little bit. Coach Hale, these two guys, they touched so many lives, and they were so dedicated to winning football. But they wanted you to win in the right way. You do it right, you hit the guy, you put him on the ground, get up, go back to the huddle. And they preach that. And during practice, when you made a mistake, there's the goalpost. I want you to go around it on your all fours 5 times. If you make another mistake of the same consequence, do 10 more. But they wanted you to play the game, never quit. You didn't dare quit with Coach Hale and Coach Matthews, because you would have a little incentive come Monday. But those two guys, I credit them for giving me, the football foundation, which I was fortunate to be able to, go on and play at A&M and then play for Atlanta. But, Coach Matthews was the animated one of the two. And if you can remember, he had that old gold cap with the letter N on it, and from what I can remember, he must have had that thing for 15, 20 years. But when he turned that hat around like this right here, you better look out, something's going to happen. And he always loved to demonstrate what we refer to as a forearm shiver. And what he would, now I can't get down in the 4-point stance now, so don't expect me to demonstrate it. I've passed that point in my life that I can do that. But when he turned that hat around, he was going to show you how it was done. And he'd get down in the 4-point stance in front of a guy that said, tell the kid to block him. Well, when the kid fired off to block him, he would rattle his jaws, and you got the message of what he wanted you to do. Do it right. And now I've got to tell this. Is Jeff here? Jeff Hale? Jeff, don't spread this around, but when I was a senior here in Nacogdoches High School, Coach Hale was always talking about do it right and set a good example. And so my senior year, after the season, I was recruited by Tulane. And so on my trip to Tulane, we as they do, they want to show you a good time or whatever. And so the guy who was escorting me around was a guy by the name of Jerry Graves, who was from Palestine, Texas. And the coach that was recruiting me at the time was a guy named John Simak, who was one of my coaches my rookie year in Atlanta. But so Coach Hale flew me down to New Orleans, and we went out, Saturday night, and we went down on Bourbon Street, which is, not what Mom and Daddy wanted to know about me. And so we went into this place, and we hadn't been in there 5 or 10 minutes, and Coach Hale and I look up about as far as from here to these back row here on the seats, and our eyes connected, and we both just said, uh-oh. But he was a guy that would get the most out of you. And Coach Matthews was the same way. And when he, like I said, when he said, put this hat around, look out. But I'm glad that we're able to remember these two men. My only regret is we didn't get it before they passed on. But I think they're up there looking down tonight. But everyone that knew the guy, and I think it's a tribute to him of the number of people that are here tonight, that how great these individuals were as far as people, not just football coaches, but as people. And I want to thank each and every one of you who have contributed, who were here tonight to honor these two men. And I'll just say, let's go Dragons.
Coach Hale and Coach Matthews were hired to come to Nacogdoches in 1952. The Dragons had fallen upon hard times. In fact, the team had only won one game in the preceding 2 years, and I think the year before they had only even scored but one touchdown, so things were kind of bleak. And Coach Hale was an assistant coach over in Palestine before he was hired for this job. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was talking to him, and I said, Coach, I was on the school board here at Nacogdoches for several years, and in that time frame, we hired 2 head coaches, so I had some idea of what characteristics and qualifications the district looks for to hire a head coach. I said one of the primary rules that our district had at the time was to hire a coach who'd been a head coach on this level. And I said, now, you were an assistant at Palestine, is that correct? He said, yeah. I said, well, how in the world did you talk him into hiring you? He stopped and he scratched his head for a minute and he said, well, he said, I think was the only one that applied for the job. Thought that was a pretty good answer. One thing that I remember, and I just about bet that every guy here that played football with these two guys would remember as well. After the ball game, when you got on the bus to come home, you had your helmet in your hand and you were beating it up on the top of that bus because it made noise. And everybody was hollering and screaming inside the bus. You couldn't hear anything. Coach Hale would come in. He'd be the last guy to get on the bus. He'd hold his hand up like this. Of course, everybody get quiet as a church mouse. He'd look out and he'd say, now, fellas, you did a great job. You won the ball game. You played well. And when we win, all sins are forgiven. Well, about a day and a half later, we would have our film session in the old high school building down on the first floor. Coach Matthews, Coach Harris's math class. And I said, Coach, when we go in there and you turn that film on, all of those forgiven sins appeared on that screen. And we spent an inordinate amount of time talking about those sins that were, I thought, forgiven. And so he sort of scratched his head again. He said, well, he said, only Jesus can forgive them all. That's about all we've got tonight. I don't want to belabor this, but I do want to mention one thing. Any good coach, or for that matter, any good man, has a good woman right there with them. And our 2 coaches were really blessed in that regard. Judy Hale, I gave up counting how many committees and boards, etc., that I was on, that she was on. And if you knew Judy well, you knew that when she wanted to get something done, she got it done. Now, sometimes she couldn't do it, but she knew who could. And she'd get behind that deal, and at the end of the day, it always got done. And Coach Matthews had Virginia behind him, and I'm going to have to tell you a little bit of a story to understand how he became the taskmaster that he was. Miss Virginia, one of the classes that she taught at Stephen F. Austin was a water safety instructor program. And like an idiot, one summer I signed up for that course. I had to have so many PE courses to graduate anyway, and it was a 1-hour course. Started at 7 o'clock in the morning down at the old swimming pool. And so I signed up, and this little lady was behind the desk and got me registered for the course. And I asked her, I said, where's the table so I could sign up for a history class? And she said, you won't be signing up for another class. I said, well, why not? This is just a 1-hour class. She said, no. She said, it may be a 1-hour credit, but it's going to last longer than that. And I said, well, how long? And she said, well, you'll find out. I didn't leave that pool before 12 noon. We got there at 7. You couldn't be a minute late. We got there at 7. We left at 12. When we got through with that course, I got a call from the U.S. military saying I qualified for the Navy SEAL program. I've never worked so hard in all my life. I just thought football was hard. You had to be a part of that to understand. Anyway, I'm going to have two. Yeah. Oh, good night, Jess. Chip, how could I forget? Chip, come up. That's what you get for not practicing.
It's okay. Thank you. Bad knees. I was asked to respond for both families, and we're certainly appreciative of this evening. Families of Gene Hale and L.H. Matthews, Becky and Jeff, my mother Virginia, Mark and I are so deeply appreciative and grateful to those of you who helped make this wonderful tribute a reality. To Rick Still and David Stallings, we extend our heartfelt gratitude for all the time and effort that you two committed to this project. To those of you who helped fund this tribute, the fact that you still hold our fathers and husbands so dear in your hearts touches us more deeply than you can know. To those of you who came to honor Coach Hale and Coach Matthews today, your presence signifies your respect and admiration for these men. We thank you for choosing to spend this moment with us. And finally, to the Nacogdoches Independent School District, we certainly appreciate your support for this tribute and the golden opportunity that you provided to young coaches those many years ago. Coach Hale and my dad followed a code of chivalry which extended beyond the athletic field to every aspect of their lives. And they expected the young men who played for Nacogdoches High School to exemplify the tenets of that code: honor, courage, strength, determination, sportsmanship, and a fierce pride tempered by humility. Their contributions to our lives rests much more in these qualities, these old truths of the human heart, than in the number of games their teams won. Perhaps our responsibility to them lies in reaffirming that code of chivalry for the next generation. So may those of us present at this tribute resolve to uphold these ideals by which Gene and H lived their lives, and to let everyone know that in old Nacogdoches there were once two coaches who encouraged, inspired, and expected their boys to become good men and to be worthy of the name Nacogdoches Dragons. I've adapted a Grantland Rice poem for this occasion. I'd like to read it. Game called. Across the field of play, the dusk has come, the hour is late. The fight is done and lost or won. The dragons file out through the gate. The tumult dies, the cheer is hushed. The stands are bare, the stadium is still. But through the night there shines the light, home beyond the silent hill. Game called. We're in the golden light, the bugle sounds the reveille. The shadows creep where night falls deep, and taps has called the end of play. The game is done, the score is in. The final cheer and jeer have passed, and in the night, beyond the fight, two old coaches find their rest at last. Game called. Upon the field of life, the darkness gathers far and wide. The dream is done, the score is spun, that stands forever in the guide. Nor victory nor yet defeat defines their legacy in the end. But down the road, the final scroll shows only how they coached young men. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip. Qualifies you to be more than a school teacher. This time we're going to have our ribbon taken off of our monument and make it official. We've got George Perry Campbell and Dale Frost over there. And fellas, if you will, just tug on the tape and it should come right off. Good. Let's give them a big hand.
Y'all look so handsome. Woohoo!
That enough?
Old dragons never die. They just get